This is Jackson Snyder with Jackson Snyder Presents, and I'm presenting today 9/11, Vesuvius, and the new interpretation of the Revelation.
Part 1.
We're going to jail, man. Like, let's go. All we will do is move forward, and if they lock us up, we lock it up, and God give us the breath to keep going. Let's go. Get out of here, man.
You are about to experience Jackson Snyder Presents. We will examine the life of our master Yeshua by discovering his ancestors, family, and friends, by reviewing rare ancient manuscripts, and speaking to those who know him best. From the Vero Essene Yahad, now experience Jackson Snyder Presents.
My name's John Schoon, and my presentation is 9/11 in Revelation, and we're going to go over some Bible verses in Revelation, and we're going to compare them to the 9/11 event, and hopefully you'll see some similarities. There's several places where the descriptions of events appear to match the collapse of the World Trade Center towers on 9/11. I've isolated 4 places, basically, maybe 5. The 7 thunders of chapter 10, 2 witnesses of chapter 11. This, where I believe, is where we are chronologically. Revelation 14:8. Babylon is fallen. They say it twice for the 2 twin towers. Revelation 17 and 18 kind of go together. The beast and the great harlot. And Revelation 18 is, for our generation, the operative verse of the whole book of Revelation. Really, come out of her, my people. And this is what the Yahad is all about. It's about, these religions of Christianity that have been in place for 2,000 years, and people are realizing that we're relearning the name of Yeshua and the great El as Father, Yahuwah. And it's a matter of saying that no to the Babylonian religions, the Christian religions that are based on a lot of the same principles as Babylon. So go ahead and give me the next slide, and we'll get started. And he said, and I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with the cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were of the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. What I think they're doing is, the Statue of Liberty in this is sort of like, it's an androgynous figure. It's kind of like half male, half female, or male and female combined into one, okay? Sometimes it's portrayed as a woman, sometimes as a man. This time, it says his, and that's the masculine side. The Statue of Liberty, clothed in a cloud, it's kind of clothed there like, and the rays of the sun, Barry Moreno says, the spikes of the sun's rays, and his face is as it were of the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire while he's standing on a pedestal. And he had in his hand open a little book. There's the book. He set his right foot upon the sea, his left foot upon the earth. If you notice the Statue of Liberty, it's sitting on a little island in the middle of New York Harbor. So it's partially in the sea and partially on the earth. And he cried with a loud voice, as what the line was. When we had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And there's 2 basic interpretations. You had the 7 buildings of the World Trade Center complex, but you also had, on the day of 9/11, we had 4 planes crash, and we had 3 buildings that fell. A lot of people forget about Building 7, okay? They brought that down later in the day, or their explanation is it fell down by itself. However it happened, it was, it adds up to 7 for the whole day. The angel, which I saw stand upon the sea of the earth, lifted up his hand to heaven, said, swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth, and the things that are in the sea, and the things that are within, that there should be time no longer. Okay? And that becomes very important, because this is really, the whole event is a historical marker. It's sort of like an anchor date that we can establish. We can play off of this date because it's a date in prophecy that's certain and it's going to mean something. And when we figure out what it means, then we'll be able to move around and decode other dates in prophecy. In the days of the voice of the seven angels shall begin to sound. The mystery of who I call El should be finished. And you think of that. Okay, this has all been a mystery for thousands of years. What's the book of Revelation mean? The mystery is now finished. It should be obvious what it means. This event is so profound, it's changed the world, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets. So he declared all these things to his prophets, and John the Apostle was one of these prophets that he declared this to. This is from Joshua to John, probably his best friend in the world, and some people say the apostle he loved. Okay, but it happens with all the prophets. Daniel went up. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again and said, Go take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel, which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said, Give me the little book, that take it and eat it, and it shall make my belly bitter, but in thy mouth it'll be sweet as honey. Okay? And he says, And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and in my mouth was sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. Now, does anybody have any idea what the little book might be? I believe that the book in his hand probably represents the New Testament. And I'm talking about the New Testament that was the King James New Testament in particular. Okay? Because it was around the time of July 4th, 1776, that the New Testament was finally completed. The fourth revision of the King James Bible came out in 1769. Just 7 years prior to that. We also had the date of the country, I think July 4th is on the book itself. That's also the date when the Declaration of Independence is signed. The year is written in Roman numerals, indicating there might be another hidden meaning in the date. The Illuminati, found May 1st, 1776. Closely associated with Freemasonry, the New World Order, communism, all that, right around that time and on that book. And here's the Bible that was even published, 1776, and in the middle of the Declaration of Independence. The Torah, in its original form, is the spoken word of Yahweh, our El. The New Testament is an unauthorized addition to Holy Scripture and has no authorization from our El as Scripture. Now, that's not to say that the books weren't inspired or anything. What it's saying is King James and company had no authorization from anywhere. The Holy Spirit wasn't involved. This was a work of men, and they went and translated these ancient writings, and they declared it was the sin is really they're declaring it as the uninspired, perfect Word of God. And that's where they get into trouble, because it's not. Okay, it's their version. It's an interpretation. Okay, the true scriptures probably don't exist anywhere on earth. If they are, they're hidden. And Jackson, you would know a little bit more about that. I would exclude the book of Revelation in particular, because the vision is prophesied in Daniel 8, 13, and 14. And in that, it says, Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said that unto that certain spirit which spake, How long shall the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, 2,300 days until the sanctuary shall be cleansed. And what that means is, I believe that the book was written 2,300 days before the sacrifices stopped at the temple in 70 AD, which means the book of Revelation was actually written in 60, or at least a vision was given in 64 AD. And in part 2, I'm going to go over this. It just so happens that it was on Nisan 18, the same day as Yahshua rose from the grave, as the vision was given, but only 34 years later, in 64 AD. And this is just before the Roman persecution started. Of course, it was before the temple was destroyed. What you have is, you have a book that predicts all of this stuff, the destruction of the temple and everything else. It wasn't written after, like the church fathers say. It was actually written before the destruction of the temple. And that's a big key in understanding it. And it also says, Understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Now, one of these things is, at the time of the end of the sacrificial age was the vision. But the other part of it is, it's the time of the end. This is our time, the time of the end. It's also like it's history repeating itself. Somebody said history doesn't repeat itself. It usually rhymes. So you have the time of the end. And this is what this book was about. It's the time of the end, which we're kind of 9/11 event. It's just kind of like the shot over the bow. We're coming into the time of the end. The Statue of Liberty. What was the Statue of Liberty? It was designed by Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, a French Freemason, after the Colossus of Rhodes and Helios. Originally, it was intended as a gift to Egypt, and that kind of comes into play later, and they rejected it. So it was re-gifted. Remember Seinfeld when they had re-gifting involved? Re-gifted to America, 1876, 100 years later. And he said unto me, thou must prophesy again before many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. Okay, that's the end of chapter 10 with the announcement, there shall be time no more. 7 thunders, symbolized by the World Trade Center bombing on 9/11. And I believe this also indicates the end of 6,000 years of human history from Adam, okay, and the beginning of the 7th millennium. The mystery of our El, as told to the prophets, shall be revealed, which was given to Yochanan, the servant of Yahshua, in the form of the vision foretold in Daniel 13 and 17. Yeshua will soon return to establish his earthly kingdom. Satan, who was banished from the heavens, restricted to earth, will make a last stand to oppose the kingdom of Yahshua when it arrives. And that's the end of chapter 10. And we start in chapter 11. It says he was given a reed, maybe like this, I don't know. Like unto a rod, and the angel stood saying, rise, measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. Well, you have a problem with this right off the bat if you go by the 95 AD date of writing for Revelation like most people do, because it says measure the temple of God as if it's still standing. So if the book was written in 95 AD, the temple would have been destroyed, and this wouldn't have made any sense at all. But if it's 64 AD, it makes perfect sense, because the temple is about to be destroyed in a few years. But the court which was without the temple leave out and measure not, for it is given them to the Gentiles and the holy city. They shall tread underfoot 42 months. Okay, this actually happened when the Romans besieged Jerusalem. Verse 1 tells us the temple was still standing. I've already gone over that. It happened in late 69 AD until Passover 73 AD, when the last of the Jewish rebels committed mass suicide at Masada. And this will bear a parallel to 9/11. Now, this is an outline of Solomon's temple, and what they had was 2 pillars stood outside the temple. They were called Boaz and Jachin. Did I say that right?
Yakin.
They were kind of in front, and the temple was behind them. If you notice how the World Trade Center complex is laid out, World Trade Tower 7 was actually the brains of the operation. That's where they kept all the financial records, if you remember, from the Enron scandal. And they had to bring that building down to get rid of that. But they also brought down the 2 pillars. And they were the 3. And so what this means is it's sort of like a representation of the destruction of the temple. Whoever you want to think did this, the Illuminati, Satan himself, the powers that be, they brought this down for a reason. It was designed for a reason. It wasn't really so much man who designed it. If you think about how Satan operates, he puts ideas into people's heads. And they don't realize they're doing his work because he operates by sending them strong delusions. That's why the original complex was designed that way, so that these buildings fell and they fell against the temple. They took the temple down. It's the same as destroying the temple. This one's another interesting example, the Herod's temple, which you have the temple itself, the Holy of Holies. It also says on here, the northern tower and the southern tower. That's very similar design to the 9/11 complex. And this is another representation. You really can't see it too well, but it measures, it says 600 feet. And that's probably about as big as the World Trade Center complex. This might be a little bit bigger. But if you think about all the other courtyards and everything and the area where the Gentiles were, these could represent these other buildings of the complex. Okay, and I will give my power unto my 2 witnesses, and they will prophesy 1,203 days clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees, the 2 candlesticks, standing before the God of the earth. And when they're standing before the God of the earth, that's not the God of the heaven. That's not El. That's Satan. He's standing before him. If you look at candlesticks, you think the candle's burning. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devoureth their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must be killed in this manner. Look at the fire look at it from John's point of view, for 1st century apostle. They get hurt and then fire comes out of their mouth. That's what he sees in the vision. These have the power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with plagues as often as they will. If you think about a lot of the things that have been happening since 9/11, you think of a lot of the tsunamis and the oil spill disasters and all these things that are coming upon the earth, and it seems like they're getting worse and worse with the weather. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit, think of the bottomless pit, and these trade center towers, okay, shall make war against them and overcome them and kill them, okay? Also, I've made the connection to Egypt, that Egypt refused the gift of the Statue of Liberty, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Well, if you notice, the New Freedom Tower and the other two towers, they line up to the Giza pyramids in Egypt. And it says spiritually it's called Sodom and Egypt because spiritually our whole nation has strayed far from the Creator, our El, Yahuwah. Okay? So they're comparing us to Babylon. This is comparing the 9/11 trade centers. And as I go through this, you're going to find out what the New Freedom Tower means. And the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. Okay, how could this happen? Now, a day for a year, if anybody's familiar with prophecy, a day can mean a year. 3.5 years until the conduit was laid for the New Freedom Tower in February and March of 2005. Half of the victims of 9/11 were never identified, and almost no bodies were ever recovered. Only fragments. All right, so if you think about their bodies not being put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. And this was going on in Palestine when 9/11 happened. People were celebrating. Even now, you got a rock group up here, whatever kind of music they play. They're singing. This is a yearly celebration in a lot of parts of the world. The Twin Towers, have gone in the blink of an eye, and oh, how sweet the memory. This event, even though it's mourned, it's still celebrated in a lot of places. And after 3.5 days, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood up on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And now you have the two dead towers, they're holes in the ground now, and the new building, the New Freedom Tower, is going up in its place. So if you think about it, they stood up on their feet, and I'll show you why it's they and not just one. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither, and they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them.
What's in the first picture? What's in the background?
That's the tower in the middle. It's kind of ascending up into a cloud because,
I see.
See what I'm saying?
Is that the new one?
That's the new one.
Oh, okay.
And they pay particular attention to the shape of this thing. It's triangles like pyramids here. There's a pyramid coming up from the bottom and one coming down from the top. And what this is, it's like it's merging the twin towers cockeyed into the form of a hybrid seed. In other words, if you take the two twin towers, it's merging two into one, and it's sort of like, when you think about it, it's all this kind of political correctness, and inclusiveness, that we're all one and there's no difference between us and the Muslim. It's basically, it's Satan saying that it's going to be one human race, and there's no room for Yahshua in this human new paradigm that he's created. And as we go on, you're going to see the symbolism in it. So go. The second woe is past. The third woe cometh quickly. The three woes are Trumpet Judgements 5, 6, and 7. They correspond to the three woes. And the first four trumpet judgments were actually outlined in Revelation 8, and they were from a prior age, okay? Each one of them may have had a duration of approximately 150 years each, and assuming that, they would have taken place as follows. The first trumpet, 12, when Yahshua was just maybe getting bar mitzvah, okay? Until 162, when the last of the people that knew the indwelt spirits would die. And they're symbolized by the trees and the green grass being burnt. The green grass symbolizing believers, okay? The second trumpet, the sea becomes blood, okay? That was from, when 162, there was a lot of bloodshed until about the year 312. From 312 was when Constantine sort of took over the Christian religion. The 462, the wormwood, waters were made bitter. And what is the truth of the gospel. Think of everything not in actuality. This is all like metaphorically. Okay. The water of life. It's all being made bitter. Then the fourth trumpet, 462. That's when the darkness of the Holy Roman Empire really started to set in during this period of time. You had the canon where you had a lot of the ancient books thrown out. And, they threw away all the Bibles and they put them into vaults and they had the creed statements. Okay. What was left of the religion of the apostles was becoming completely unrecognizable by this time. Okay. Revelation 8:13, I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, by the reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels were yet to sound. Okay, 6:12 covers the first four judgments. So we have three more to go, and go ahead. First woe, I'm not going to read through this. I know a lot of you guys are getting tired, so we didn't start it. Well, what it is, a star falls from heaven and the earth, the key to the bottomless pit, and the locusts come out. And the locusts, like horses prepared on the battle. This was the first rise of the Muslim insurgency at 6:12. You remember the fourth judgment quit at 6:12. Then at 6:12, for the next 150 years, 5 prophetic months, what you have is the Muslim scourge, the first one, until 762. What it was Christianity being beaten back because of their apostasy. God always uses his enemies to judge his own people. And that's something you always have to realize. It's like the Muslims, everybody thinks of their enemies. Well, they're your enemies. It's just like the Assyrians took Israel captive. And this is basically, I was explaining to it. The first woe, 612 to 762, until Baghdad was established, and 762 is the caliphate. And it should be noted there is another interpretation that the first woe began on July 27, 1299, and ended with the start of the second woe. But there was all the crusades, you remember what took place in the years from around 1000 or so to like 1299. But go ahead. One woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter. The sixth angel sounded. I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar say, Loose the 4 angels bound in the great river Euphrates, and they were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year to slay the third part of men. Okay, and the number of the horsemen was 200 million, and I heard the number of them. And by these was the third part of men killed. There was a man named Josiah Litch who predicted the end of the Ottoman Empire in 1840. And the reason he knew that it would end then was because it was 391 years since the Ottoman Empire was founded. And I think it was 1449. So he knew the exact day that they would be founded. And come to find out, it was 391 years, 15 days. At the close of the period, he said it will be on the 11th of August, 1840, when the Ottoman Empire in Constantinople may expect it to be broken. Then this, I believe, will be found to be the case. Josiah Litch. He said, at the very time specified, Turkey, through whom her ambassadors, accepted the protection of the Allied powers of Europe and thus placed herself under the control of Christian nations. The event exactly filled the prediction. When it became known, multitudes were convinced of the correctness of the principles and prophetic interpretation by Miller and his associates, and a wonderful emphasis was given to the Advent moment. And what happened was men of learning positioned united with Miller both in preaching and publishing bills. And 1840 to 1844, the work was rapidly extended. And this led into the great disappointment, because they thought at the end of this woe, they must have thought it was the third woe, or at least the second. Well, they thought the third woe was immediately going to follow it, and it was going to lead into the tribulation. They thought the rapture was going to happen in 1844. Okay, and ever since, the Christian church is preaching the rapture. The rapture is right around the corner. It's going to happen anytime. It's imminent. It goes back to the end of the second woe, the end of the Ottoman Empire. All right, prophetically linking the woes. The last woe ended on August 11th, 1840. Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait August 2nd to 4th, 1990, almost exactly 150 years. Remember that 150-year time period earlier?
Well, beloved, we have to take a little break now.
We'll be back when it's finished, promise. Just as I promised, Jackson Snyder Present is back now to finish up message and fulfill promise.
After the second woe end, setting the stage for the third woe. Both events fall on the Hebrew date of Av 12. You have August 11th when the Ottoman Empire falls. August 2nd, 150 years later, both on Av 12. Then, the next year, George W. Bush announces a new world order. 1 year later, on September 11th, 1991, exactly 10 years before the World Trade Center towers were bombed. This occurs on the Hebrew date of Tishri 3, the third day. September 11th, 1991, go. The third woe. We are now seeing the rise of Islamic extremism in many parts of the world.
Excuse me, friends, but I think it's time for a musical interlude.
Plate.
This is the third woe mentioned in Revelation 11:14. Islam is spreading like a cancer across the entire globe. The spread of Islam is accomplished by violence, terror, murder, but attrition. Muslims are very prolific, reproduce at higher rates than non-Muslims, which means that the percentage of non-Muslims will automatically decline over time, even if they don't go around killing people. They don't believe in homosexuality, abortion, or infanticide. They also benefit from Muslim women bearing children earlier in life than non-Muslims. By the year 2100, it's expected that 35% of the world's population will be Muslim compared to 34% Christian. So we're going to be a minority in less than a century if things keep going the way they are.
Right.
It's been suggested by some, such as Jonathan Kleck, that the new Freedom Tower is in reality a Muslim mosque. And if you look at this thing, the design is an anti-prism. I've already gone over that, how they've merged the two buildings into one. The two old twin towers, okay, in the form of a hybrid seed, but with a minaret at the top.
Notice everybody starts getting excited right here. Somebody brought some tostones, whatever that is.
What is this?
They're called tostones.
Tostones?
Doscones.
Yes, tostones.
Tostones?
Doscones.
Yes, tostones.
Sure.
I got them.
Time out.
What is this?
They're called tostones.
Tostones?
Doscones.
Yes, tostones. They're tostones.
Doscones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hormone, isn't it?
No.
Testones?
They're made from plantain.
Are you guys following along so far?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Pretty far out, man.
Pretty far out?
They're tostones.
Doscones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hormone, isn't it?
No.
Testones?
Now that the Testones time is over, this is a great opportunity to mention to you that the opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily express the opinion of the management or the very hard. But we publish it tonight because it is a challenging interpretation of the apocalypse, and no farther out than any other of those crazy ones out there on YouTube. So now we return to our speaker, John Schoon, to finish up this installment of a much longer interpretation that we intend to serialize through the next couple of programs.
Now we get into the reflecting pools. Now, anybody know what the Kaaba is? Yeah, they go around here, okay, and it's a massive population. And look at the top here. 2 minarets, kind of like the Twin Towers, with this thing in the middle. Right? And look over here. This is the new 9/11 memorial.
It reminds me of Mecca.
Yeah, it's an upside down version of the Kaaba. And what they're saying is, these are all the people, they come up and they fall down and they disappear into an abyss. That's what they're telling us happens to all the, the people, the Christians in the United States. And you could be right. And when you think of it now, think about there's two, what do the two pools represent? Okay, could they represent Catholicism and Christianity? Could they represent Israel and Judah? In their place, you get a Muslim shrine that says, we're combining all the races, all the Adamic races under Islam. You either accept Islam or you go into the reflecting, whatever they are. And remember all the symbols, all the symbolism on the U.S. dollar. Okay, it's all connected with this. And what the 9/11 event says, it's all starting. It's sort of like a warning. They're just telling us. They don't care if we know it. They're like, we're taking over, and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't know how World War II. I mean, you talk about the Nazis, and the Muslims kind of have very similar tactics and goals. Well, we are the world's reigning superpower. I mean, we do. The dollar is the world's standard for currency.
World War II. After bombing Japan, Japanese and Russians killed more than the Germans did. The Russians killed something like 110 million people.
Of their own people, yeah.
And Finland.
Well, not so much during World War II, though.
Are you kidding? Stalin?
Well, he was hanging on by his fingernails at that point.
Stalin,
I thought he killed them sort of before and after.
Go look it up.
I mean, during the war, I thought he was pretty much fighting him. Yeah, he was killing people a lot before the war. But I don't know that during the war he killed as many.
He killed his own army. He killed almost the whole army.
There's no wonder he almost lost the war.
Yeah, okay.
You think you get this up?
I wanted to just show you this picture right here.
Notice also, the Dome of the Rock sits on the site where the temple once stood. Remember I compared the World Trade Center to the temple. Okay? 3 buildings which were destroyed on 9/11 were replaced by one, just as in Jerusalem. Has a mast at the top which could also function as a minaret. Okay? Same thing, Jerusalem and America. Okay, and if you think the tallest buildings in the world now are just about mostly in Muslim countries. Go ahead. Jackson, this one's for you.
Oh, good.
Look at this.
Is this where 7 and 9 and the Borg
Well, we'll
are?
get to 7 and 9, the Borg cube, okay? Look at how similar these things look. This is just a way of putting a little pop culture in there, because everything we see in pop culture is trying to tell us something. Well, the whole thing, that's just it. They were a race of alien beings from Star Trek, the Borg. They assimilated all cultures, and those conquered became part of the collective, lost all free will, and became drones who served the Borg Queen.
I love the Borg.
Okay?
I felt
the Borg
at home.
were very scary.
I felt at home when they got in the Borg ship.
Uh-huh. The Borg cube serves as an eerie resemblance to the Kaaba. Some view Muslims as having lost all their free will and are sent strong delusion by the God of this world, much like the Borg Queen who commands her drones. And this could be said of every religion on earth, too. Only under Yahuwah and Yahshua are we free. Every other religion wants to control you. Yeah, the hive mentality, exactly. It's the hive mentality. It's the same as when you have, and I'll get into this more as this thing goes on, about the queen bee, or the one in charge, controlling everybody, and the people that are being controlled have no idea. And this includes a lot of Christian denominations. They have no idea it's Satan they're following.
Oh yeah.
That's the
that's my
beautiful
favorite.
7 of 9. As a Borg, she was captured, as a little girl? And her parents were, killed, I guess?
They were researchers doing research how to stop them.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they became Borg themselves. They probably did.
Yeah. And this is what Muslims will do. They will kill the parents and bring the kids up as Muslims. This one got rescued. I mean, it's the same kind of scenario. The beautiful Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9. I put her in there, especially for you.
Were the Borg Muslims, you think?
Well, I'm just drawing the
I
parallels.
think they were, yeah.
It's the same.
They live in the Kaaba. They're in the future.
Yeah, they live in that
there.
Kaaba, that Borg cube, that black cube. I told you it wouldn't be boring.
No.
Earlier we noted that the 9/11 memorial was inverted when compared to the Kaaba. As above, so below. This memorial represents the end of our way of life and the rise of Islam in the form of the Freedom Tower. www. What's www? The World Wide Web. 666. Look at the Hebrew language, the W, 6th letter. Okay. What did Barack Obama sign on the Twin Tower, the center beam that went across it to the dedication? We remember, we rebuild, we come back stronger. This is the fallen angels. They're declaring their superiority over the entire human race. Okay. June 24th, 2012. Coincidentally, 11 years later, 9 months later, 3 days later. Okay, Barack Obama signs the final crossbeam of the Freedom Tower, considered a fulfillment of Isaiah 9:10. Look at that, close to 9:11. I forget what the next verse says. It actually seems prophetic in itself, but I couldn't put everything in here. And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven. The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our El and of his Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever, which tells us they ultimately will not be successful. Okay, that's our hope right there. 7th angel, who sounds the 7th trumpet, is announcing 6,000 years of human history have now passed as of 9/11. The promised Messiah will now rule the nations for 1,000 years, according to Revelation 24. Obviously, this is not going to sit well with all the established nations. They have their own leaders, and it's not going to go over very, very well with Hasatan, who's ruled the earth. He's ruled the earth for thousands of years, even before Adam and Eve. He's always had his way, and his judgment day is finally coming. And he's spitting in the face of our Creator and our El and our Yahuwah. He's spitting in his face, and he's saying, you're not taking this earth. We're not going to let you. And all the fallen angels, they're making their last stand. And that could be very true. But he's going to have some helpers. The 144,000, who everybody thinks they're a future group, well, guess what? They're a first century group. When he comes, he's not coming back alone this time. He's coming back with Jedi Knights, 144,000.
Hallelujah.
And they're not going to let anything happen to this man because they've proven their loyalty unto death. And they will not let it happen. And it's a question of whose side do you want to be on? The Freemasons and everybody else, I guess they've made their choice. The people that worship the J-Nude, they're making their choice. That's who they think is their Messiah. I choose Joshua. Well, if the Christians understood, they would understand that they've been duped into worshiping Satan. They don't understand you. It's hard to explain them this, but in 2,000 years, he's been able to change the names around. They call it, it's just, the J word is just Yahshua translated in English. It's not, because the name of a Yahshua is the same as Joshua. It's spelled in Hebrew, spelled exactly the same. So why did they turn out so much different? It's all part of their plan. Just a little here, little there, little tweak. Using the languages. Remember, English did not exist as a language when the Tower of Babel was bombed. Was the original Tower of Babel, which they just rebuilt. Okay, did not exist. And so he used a hybrid language. English is a hybrid language. Satan loves to use hybrids on everything. This thing's going to get better every time I present it because people are going to think of things and we're going to put things in. This is kind of minimalist and bare bones. I'm trying to get it over in an hour. But go ahead. Wake up.
You're supposed to say
Check.
Then that'll wake me up.
The 4 and 20 elders that sat before elders, he fell upon their faces and worshipped their El. Say, we give thanks, O Elohim Almighty, which art and was to come, because thou hast taken to thee great power and hast reigned. And the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give us reward to thy servants the prophets, and to thy saints, and to them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. This is leading to war. It's going to be all-out war. Satan is not going to give this planet up without a fight. He's the one running things. You know, everybody thinks God this, God, you know. Satan is the God of this world. No, don't let anybody tell you any different.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as we step out of this building, we're in his world.
I have a comment to make as far as falling asleep. It's going to take me 10 or 12 hours to edit this. I'm going to be hearing it over and over and over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll get it. Hello. Hey, Peter, where are you?
I think that's the end of chapter 11.
Yeah?
So
You've gone past.
we're getting close to halfway anyway.
You're right there at Tabernacle Ministries. Okay. Come to the building on the south side.
Where all the cars are.
No steeple. No, we took that down.
Blew it up.
Ours had a dead man on it. But come on. Yeah, come on in, and we got somebody going out looking for you. Okay, Peter.
No,
See you in a minute.
We went to the bathroom.
He went to the bathroom.
Who did?
Leave.
I thought he
He
was
just
going
went
to
to
go
the
out and meet
bathroom.
Peter.
He went that way.
He
He made a beeline for the toilet.
I was when I said Peter that he left for the bathroom. That's a stretch. Would you mind going and getting him?
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. He's driven here from who knows where, on the West Coast.
Oh man, driving from
Just
the west.
hold on. He'll want to hear the rest.
Okay.
We got all night.
Yeah, we got all this.
And besides, I'm getting a lot of rest here.
Is everybody getting their second wind yet?
Hold on before we forget all these questions.
Well, if you got any questions, but now would be a great time to ask.
Okay, so
Speak up loud.
you're saying that the building 7 was taken down, why?
Because that was basically the brains of the operation. That's where they have all the financial records from Enron, all the Clinton scandals, and also it was supposed to be the headquarters of if anything like this ever happened. That's where they were all supposed to gather. So that was the newest building that served as like the hub of everything. And remember, all this is symbolic. It's all symbolic, and it's showing something. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
My name's John. John Snoon.
John Peter Long.
Doing a little presentation right now on 9/11.
I'd like to have a cider.
Okay, John, so what's your take on the fact that the entire extraction process stopped for almost 2 hours because of safety reasons for Building 7 collapsing upon these rescues?
The extraction process stopped.
Stopped for over an hour and a half because they were concerned that Building 7 was going to collapse.
I don't get into too much of how it all happened and everything, and I believe it was an inside job, yes, but I also believe the Muslims were involved and they knew about
When
it.
Building 7 fell, there was no war started. There was the Islamic State didn't claim that. It was
No, but they were good. I'll tell you, I believe that the original plan was for Flight 77 to crash into Building 7. And I think that part of the plan got screwed up. And they went into panic mode. They had to bring that building down, so there was a little rubble against it. They set some fires and said the building was burnt down, and they had to bring it down.
But didn't you say
It had to come down one way or the other.
Didn't you say they went in there and took all the gold out of the bottom?
Yeah, well, that was mostly the Twin Towers, I think. Yeah, all the gold, and think about that. It's everything
The reason for that short building was because that was the home of, or the offices of the IRS,
Yeah.
the FBI, the CIA had an office in there.
Symbolically, it's the temple. It's the brains of the whole World Trade Center complex.
The BBC reporter reports the thing having.
Yeah, they reported that it fell 20 minutes before it fell.
And it was still in the background of the reporter.
Yeah, it's still in the background.
Like Colin.
I mean, how deep do you want the rabbit hole to go?
Like the shooting in, where was that? Up northeast, wherever there was a big shooting.
Sandy Hook.
Yeah, it came on the news before it ever happened.
Yeah, not only that, if you go into the FBI statistics even today, they will tell you there's 0 fatalities in Sandy Hook for that year. So, did anybody die there?
Our theology is written.
As far as the FBI is concerned, nobody died at Sandy Hook.
Absolutely.
Okay, I can't say, but and as far as 9/11, I don't like to get too far into conspiracy theories. There's a lot more people that have covered that to death. They beat it to death. You know, this connects it with the book of Revelation and prophecy, and says that, you know, it's up to you how much you want to believe this is just coincidence, or if I'm just making whole cloth out of ashes, or if there's something really here. Believe me, I'm just scratching the surface tonight. It goes a lot deeper than this. I have a whole timeline worked out with 9/11, the September 11th date, being the end of 6,000 years of human history. And when you do that, if you know how our L measures time, you can go back in the past and even somewhat into the future and figure out when things happen or when they're going to happen. Just using the Bible as a simple guide. You know, it's not complicated. It takes a lot of work. I'd like some other people to be able to join me and figure other things out. I'm just one guy.
Joseph Kuman has done a similar. You're just off. You guys' timeline disagrees by about 6 or 7 years. That's all.
What year would he have?
I'm thinking it's 2043.
2043 as far as what?
As far as the end of the 120 Jubilee.
Well, I have the 120th Jubilee ending in 1967. The 121st will end next year. 11 times 11. I can't say what's going to happen next year. I'm not a prophet. I don't have a crystal ball. I only observe what has happened and, you know, and try to relate it back to prophet. I don't believe there's anybody who's put together quite like this. I've seen bits and pieces. I believe you. I've gleaned a lot of this from other people's work. I'm not going to try to tell you it's all my thinking, but I put all this together, which I believe are 4 or 5 places in Revelation where 9/11 is mentioned prominently, and the reason is it's because this is the signature event that's putting us into really the new millennium, or the transition to the new millennium. Just as it took time from the time when Yahshua was killed until the temple was destroyed, until the apostolic era came to an end, it took 50 years, okay? This is going to take 50 years to play out too, all right, until he actually becomes king of the earth. For a lot of people, it might seem like history's going on just like before. And we might have some wars and things and catastrophes and all. And to the average person, they may not even, believe me, this went on right under people's noses. Everybody knew something was significant about 9/11. Nobody really realized what. It's all written right here in Revelation, but they can't see it because the church has told them lie after lie about it, that you're going to have Enoch and Elijah, okay, going around breathing fire and destroying all the Roman armies of the Antichrist. What about the little
rubber,
thing like that?
The big rubber dragon peeing on the world.
Yeah, or this rapture with 2 billion Christians flying up into the air, you know?
It's irrational.
It's easy. It's irrational. And, you know, it's like, but try and tell a Christian that, it's like telling them there's no Santa Claus. You know, they don't want to hear any part of it.
They don't.
You know, and this is the thing. You have to look at, when you look at prophecy, you have to look at it allegorically, metaphorically, whatever the word is. These things are written in such a way that the book of Revelation could be filled in the 1st century and the 21st century. So not everything's going to make 100% perfect sense, but it all actually does add up.
Yes.
When you put it together, it adds up, and you got to kind of go with, like, you got to kind of roll with it a little bit.
friend of mine, this ends the first part of the 9/11 revelation with John Schoon. Some things were interesting and some things absolutely boggle the mind, but we're out of time, so we'll have to wait until the next installment to find out more.